Welcome everyone to a new tournament, the European Club Cup that's taking place in Rhodes, Greece. And on your screen is the top Indian Grandmaster Vidit Gujrathi. His opponent is Kirk Ghazarian from USA, and the players shake hands. Vidit playing for the Czech team of Novy Bor. 6 boards that are there, and his opponent Ghazarian is from the team of Bayram Shakhselskap. You can see Vidit getting into the groove, his meditative pose. Right next to him is another Indian Grandmaster, Pentala Harikrishna. So Novy Bor has top 2 boards with top 2 Indian players, but there's also Vincent Keimer who's taking a rest day today. The players shake hands and we are ready. Let's see what Kirk does here. He takes his time and opens the game with pawn to d4. And Vidit responds with knight to f6. Pawn to c4 played. It's always a tricky matter when you play against someone. Knight to f3 played, who is rated 200 points below you, but in the first round with the black pieces, never easy. Vidit goes for Queen's Indian, a fighting opening. g3 played here, and now bishop to a6. So he's attacking the c4 pawn, and here queen comes to a4, defending the pawn and also putting pressure on the bishop. The bishop drops back to b7 on the long diagonal. Bishop comes out to g2. And now Vidit plays his pawn to g6. This is a fighting weapon by Vidit. Bishop e7 would have been the normal way to play, but here he's trying to fight for the full point. Knight e4 played to trade off the knight. The moment the knight comes to c3 in this line, black jumps with knight e4 to trade off the knights. Bishop takes e4, and now bishop to g5, attacking the queen. If the queen moves away, there's bishop f6 hitting the rook. So Vidit takes his time and goes bishop e7. Now maybe preserving the bishop with bishop h6 or even h4 could be a good idea, but he takes the bishop, and Vidit quickly takes the bishop on e7. Kirk Ghazarian has played quite quickly in the opening. Now short castles played here, and Vidit also short castles here. Well, white's position is definitely slightly better. Rook c1, that's a good move. You want to get the other rook to d1, and he plays his pawn to a5. Knight jumps into e5, offering a trade of bishops. For Ghazarian, this is actually just something where he's fighting for maybe equality, half a point. Pawn to d6, kicking the knight away. You can also jump into c6, but then the problem is queen e8 pins the knight here. So that's the reason why knight goes back to f3. With it goes knight d7. And now queen jumps into c6, attacking the pawn on c7. He defends it with rook c8 and pawn to e4, trying to grab more space in the center. Vidit plays his pawn to e5. If you go d5, I have knight c5 followed by f5, which is the reason why Kirk takes on e5, but that's not the best move as well. de, black has equalized here, and maybe even slightly pushing rook f d1, taking the open file with the rook. With it brings his knight to c5. The problem, the big issue that white faces now is of course the weakness of d4 square. He wants to go knight d3 and trade off the strong knight on c5, but Vidit stops it. Pawn to h4, trying to create some kind of play with h5, h6. Vidit goes rook to d4, capturing the d4 square. Rook takes rook, and now the pawn comes into d4. E takes d4, and this pawn is super strong here. Knight comes up to f3, attacking the pawn on d4, and Vidit gets his final piece into the game with rook to d8. He goes rook d1, and now black, instead of pushing the pawn, goes rook d6, queen a8 check, and he brings his rook back to d8. The queen comes back to c6, and Vidit pushes his pawn forward. He goes pawn to d3, e5 played here. The position is slightly better for black, but here it seems closer to equality now. b3 played, and Vidit goes king g7, quietly improving his position. Kirk goes rook d2. Remember, until move 40, both players have this time left. Vidit has around 16 minutes. Kirk has 26 minutes with 11 more moves to make. He goes back rook d1, which is the best move in the position, and Vidit goes f6. A very powerful move. Where his opponent goes wrong, maybe the best way to play was a3 with b4, but takes, and now queen takes f6 taken. And Ghazarian, whether he should trade the queens or not is the question, but his position already looks very dicey. He takes the queen, king takes f6, Vidit instantly recaptures back. He knows every move has to be made quickly. King comes back to f1, and now let's see how Vidit finishes it off. We are on move 33. Players have 11 minutes left. And Vidit now goes with his knight to e4, and Kirk goes king e1. He stops the pawn from coming to d2, but Vidit knows that he has one more piece in the game. That's the king. The king is a strong piece in the endgame. a3 played, asking Vidit to show how he's going to break through. Goes rook to d8, waiting here, and now knight d2. That's not a good move because black can play rook e8, attacking the king here. And yes, he finds it. Excellent move by Vidit. King goes back into the corner with king f1. But now Vidit knows it's completely winning. He takes on d2. Rook takes d2 and plays his king to e4. A fantastic move. The king is coming to d4 and c3. And that would be very powerful. Pawn to f4 played. And king d4, he goes rook d1, king c3, and before you know it, the game is over. Kirk resigns here after rook a2. Vidit scores a very smooth win in the first round with this D passer, showing his class, and Vidit Gujrathi scoring a win for Novy Bor as his team beats their opponent with a 6-0 scorecard.